We're going to be moving on to another lovely project running in multiple cities that I will let Dr. Trevor Hart explain. And Dr. Trevor Hart is the professor in the psychology, is a professor, not the professor, there's more than one, in the Department of Psychology at Ryerson University. Dr. Hart's research in HIV prevention and care spans a wide variety of fields, including mental health, sexual health, and public health. Dr. Hart's research is conducted in the HIV Prevention Lab HIV Prevention Lab and collaborating labs, HIV clinics, and AIDS service organizations, of which he's very involved, I will say. Trevor is very much involved in the community, and it's something I deeply respect about him. So, he works to develop and test sex-positive, anti-oppressive HIV prevention interventions and psychotherapies for gay and bisexual and other men who have sex with men. His work is both community-based and clinical and relies on a health promotion framework. Dr. Hart is also a nominated principal investigator of the ENGAGE study, the Sexual Confidence Psychotherapy study, and the GPS Implementation Science study, all studies about the sexual and mental health of gay, bi, and queer men. So welcome to the stage, Dr. Hart. It's hard to read. Make it bigger. Can you do it?
Sorry to make it bigger for me. So, originally, I'm going to talk to you about the GPS program. The GPS program is a counseling program, originally done as a small group counseling program, and now also done as an individual counseling program. Originally, it was conceptualized that because there was still a problem, this was in the pre-PrEP era, there was still a problem, and there still is to some extent, although we have a lot of other options, about our HIV incidence and prevalence in the gay, bi, queer men's community. So while it's still a problem, we do have other options. Originally, though, we didn't have as many options, and many of those behaviorally oriented HIV prevention interventions weren't really guided by any local needs. It was just they were created often in the US by research, and then everyone was just supposed to do it after the research came out. A lot of interventions are also that were very kind of use a condom kind of focused, are not really that adaptable to biomedical HIV prevention, like treatment as prevention and PrEP. And as we know, all condomless anal sex acts are not equally risky depending on people's viral load and on use of PrEP. And so there are benefits of moving beyond health promotion programs as well that are exclusively focused on HIV. We've always conceptualized, even though we call our lab the HIV Prevention Lab, we've debated changing its name because we really don't think about HIV prevention as existing in a vacuum. We really think about HIV and STIs are intimately associated with how we feel about ourselves, with what's happened to us in our history, and attitudes and behaviors and our moods. So, and there's been some concerns about a lot of these HIV prevention interventions that they're kind of not that sustainable, and how do we actually keep these things going on in communities and clinics? In the Canadian setting, it's often the case that the MSM worker will create a program, it's a nice program, and then that program leaves when the ASO worker leaves. That's certainly what happens a lot in Ontario. And so the programs come and go, come and go, come and go. And we wanted to create something that would be sex positive, anti-oppressive, and sustainable. So we had a community-based research approach. It involves lots of partners from universities, AIDS service organizations, and from HIM, government, and gay, bi, queer men in the community. And the approach has been sustainable and successful. We're working with many of the same partners that we started with, and we've been funded by CIHR and other grants since 2009. And this approach has led to a lot of collaborations with community partners, in real life, so beyond the research, which is kind of what I wanted. I don't want it just to be some research study that leads to nowhere to some papers. So to tell you a little bit about the GPS program, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we do this program in individual counseling. In session 1, we talk about sexual health of gay, bi men. We talk about our history in the community. We talk about disclosure. We talk about PrEP. We talk about STIs. We talk about treatment as prevention. And we also talk about about HIV disclosure. We talk about the stresses that people experience that may or may not be related to directly to being gay. We talk about stresses like work stresses. We talk about erectile dysfunction. We talk about whether or not your sex is pleasurable. We talk about financial strain. Because we believe that, kind of as I've articulated probably in every session so far this time, how we feel is associated with how we fuck. So we wanted to kind of talk to people about what's stressing them out, what's working for them, how do they feel about themselves, because we do believe that's associated with what kind of sex they're having. And then in session 2, we talk about what we do called behavioral self-monitoring. We actually give people a sheet of paper. They can fill it out or not. It's up to them. But we say, if you'd like to fill it out, please tell us about what you did sexually. Tell us how you felt before the sex. Tell us about how you felt after the sex. So what was your amount of stress before? What was your amount of stress after? And then we also talk about, like, what were the reasons why you had sex? And for a lot of guys, that's a little bit tough because a lot of guys are like, I had sex because it was sex. And so we kind of want to unpack that a bit more. Did you want to have sex because that guy was really hot? You wanted to seek pleasure? Was it, intimacy? And then for a lot of our guys, we find out it wasn't only for those reasons. It was because they were feeling down. They were feeling bored. They were feeling lonely. They were feeling useless. So there are a lot of other reasons why we can do things even if they're positive things. And then we also start to talk about what choices are people making? What are they doing sexually? What's working for them? What's not working for them? And then starting out in sessions 3 through 5, we start to translate more vague or value-based goals. So a lot of guys will say, I'd really like to feel more connected. I'd really like to feel, better about myself. Well, those are good goals, but we'd like to know, what would that look like for you? What would you have to do that would help you to feel more connected? What would you do that would help you to feel better about yourself? So people will talk about things like, even though we encourage people to choose goals related to sex, we don't tell people what that means for them. And we're often surprised at just how diverse goals are that are related to sexual health. We've had guys say, you know what, I think I want to quit smoking because when I smoke, I used to feel sexy, but now I don't feel so sexy when I smoke. I feel like it's turning people off, and maybe that's something I'd like to consider for myself. I don't feel as sexy anymore. Or I'd feel like I need to say no to my drug dealer more often because I feel like I'm just using drugs more often than I kind of want to. Or they might say, I think I need to kind of maybe ask guys, about the things that I'd like to do sexually. Or refuse to do things that I don't want to do sexually, that I kind of been pushed into different roles. Different guys are pushed into different roles based upon stereotypes that people have about what kind of sex they think that other person wants. And then we have people role play, what they would do, how they would assert themselves, how they would get their goals met. So they'll kind of even to practice a little bit with the counselor about how they'd like to make the changes they'd like to make, and then to try to make those changes in their regular life. And of course, we validate their progress, especially at the end, but also throughout the course of this very short counseling program. So the implementation model of GPS, again, it used to be called Gay Pause Sex, but we've changed the name to GPS because this program is now for any gay, bi, or queer man, including trans men who have sex with men, regardless of HIV status. Because we thought, ultimately, this program is a program that's great for men who have sex with men. It's sex positive. It acknowledges our history and our realities as gay men. It's administered typically by men who have sex with men or by people who are strong allies. And so we wanted it to be a program that could be accessible to anybody who is sexually active. And peer counselors are the trainers. So neither of our initial trainers were mental health professionals when they began. I happen to be a clinical psychologist, and I'm also in private practice, but I didn't want this program to be something that would be administered only by psychologists, because psychologists are not typically found in a lot of the settings that many of us work in the HIV sector and in the gay, bi, queer men's sector. Ooh, boy. So we wanted to make sure that this program could be implementable in real-life settings. And our method of counseling is called motivational interviewing. That's helping people to induce rapid, internally motivated change using their participants' own change resources. We don't tell people what their goal is. We don't know what their goal is. We just say we're hoping, because this is about sex, it'll be something related to sex. So I'll just briefly cover some of the results. What we did find is that even though we didn't once tell people to have less sex, we didn't once tell people to use a condom, we didn't once tell people what kind of partners they should choose or not choose, in our original sample of HIV positive men, people did reduce their proportion of condomless anal sex, both in general and with HIV negative or unknown HIV status partners. We were a little worried about this at first because we're really sex positive, so we were worried that there was some sort of internal, maybe we were getting sex negative messages, but it turns out guys are telling us, no, I'm having sex, but I'm having the sex I want to have now. You know, we're very influenced by the GMSH in Ontario, the getting the sex you want. So we always talk about getting the sex you want, but maybe not having the sex that you didn't want, or sex that was associated with feeling regretful afterwards, or that wasn't really what you wanted. We also saw reductions in loneliness and something called sexual compulsivity, which is really just when people are having sex just because they feel like they should, but they're not really interested in having the sex and they feel regretful afterwards. People had increases in condom use, self-efficacy, even though we didn't once talk to them about condoms unless that was their concern. And they had decreased fear of being sexually rejected. So basically, we found out that GPS was better than what people were getting in the general community, and it was better at reducing problems associated with kind of unwanted sex and loneliness. And what we found is that it helped people to enjoy pleasure and have more intimacy. For example, people said they were also able to avoid sex that leads to regret, shame, or psychological problems. One participant said, "It improved my sex life to the point that I'm no longer sort of driven to pick up men just for the sake of doing drugs and having sex." And we've increased its reach nationally. We have a bunch of partners, the Regional HIV/AIDS Connection in London, Ontario, MAX and the Ottawa Hospital, the AIDS Committee of Toronto, the Health Initiative for Men, and some other partners as well that we're just talking to at the summit. And it's because this program works in real life. That's the only way that we've administered this program, is by counselors that actually work in our community-based organizations. And so we've delivered this program kind of individually to, you can see the numbers here in Toronto, Ottawa, London, and Vancouver. And one of the things that we've learned is that we have to be resilient regarding turnover among staff. So what we're started to do is on a yearly basis, we're going to be doing trainings on GPS and on motivational interviewing. And we're actually doing a training on motivational interviewing. Our trainers are actually administering the motivational interviewing workshop that will be delivered. Actually, we already did a part of it. That will be delivered again by the Gay Men's Sexual Health Alliance. So we're kind of involved in kind of training people in stuff that helps people and stuff that's kind of sex positive and allows people to make their own decisions. But the sites did differ in terms of ease of rolling out the program. It was easier in big cities than it was in smaller sites, and so we're paying attention to that when we administer this program in the future. So in summary, the program seems to be, they call it acceptability. It sounds kind of like negative when you say like it's acceptable, but it's a research term. It means guys liked it. Guys liked the program and it's feasible to administer. And what's nice about it is it shows we can do this work kind of across nationally if we want to. And we're interested, if you're interested in kind of rolling out this program, we're interested in talking to you. But just remember, there needs to be some continued resources to deal with staff turnover. We'll train you, but we can't make the staff be there. So we're eager to work with anybody who's interested. We want to acknowledge our funders and the many men who participated in our study. Thank you.